Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm going to be doing my December wrap-up part 2. So usually in this video I talk about the videos that I made this month, but I did Vlogmas, and so I'm not going to go over all 24 videos that I created, but I will link to my Vlogmas playlist up in the cards, so that way if you are new here and you haven't seen those videos, you can definitely check those out. There's plenty of content there. Thanks so much to everyone for watching and commenting and just generally interacting with me this month. I always really enjoy doing Vlogmas because it gives me the opportunity to do stuff that I don't typically get to do, and you guys responded really well to it, which is always one of my concerns. Like, I'm always worried that when I do different things, you guys won't like it, but you guys did, which is great. So yeah, thanks again to everyone for being a part of Vlogmas with me, whether you watched just a couple of videos or you watched all of the videos. I appreciate it so much. I do want to say that I did a December wrap-up part 1, obviously, because this is a part 2. So I will link directly to that in case you are interested in hearing me talk about some of the books I read in the first part of the month. In this video, I'm just going to be talking about the books that I read in the last couple of weeks, last 2 weeks or so. So first up, I have Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This is a relatively new young adult release from Jason Reynolds. It was released a couple of months ago. This is a book that's on the shorter side, and I actually ended up listening to this one as an audiobook. This is a book written in verse, and Jason Reynolds narrates it himself. So when I saw that it was available at my library, I decided to pick it up, and the entire thing is less than 2 hours on audiobook. So I ended up listening to the whole thing on like a Saturday afternoon while I was like cleaning my house. I just sort of like stuck my earbuds in and just went for a couple of hours straight through, and it was really great. I really love Jason Reynolds as a writer, and his books to me already had like a rhythm and lyrical sense to it, so it like made sense to me personally that he would write a book specifically in verse. So in this story, you are following this character named Will, whose brother was recently shot and killed by someone else. He finds out who did it, and the entire story takes place over the course of an elevator ride as he is heading off to take revenge on his brother's death. So Long Way Down is sort of about, you know, this long elevator ride that he has while he's on his way to kill this guy. He himself is wrestling with the decision that he's made, and you get to see him sort of wrestle with that along with other people. It's hard to talk about this book because it's not super long and I don't want to spoil anything, but if you are a fan of Jason Reynolds, if you are a fan of books written in verse, I think that this is really well done. I do recommend it on audio if you have the opportunity, but this is definitely one that you should either read or listen to in one go as much as possible. Even just me like pausing it slightly while I was in the midst of cleaning if I needed to, you know, talk to someone or something like that. Even that sort of break I felt like really messed with the rhythm a little bit for me. So if you can have the opportunity to listen to this straight through, highly recommend doing so. I believe I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished was The Unexpected Inheritance of Inspector Chopra by Vaseem Khan. This is a mystery book, and it's sort of like your typical detective type story. It takes place in Mumbai, India, and you are following Inspector Chopra. He has recently retired from being an inspector in Mumbai. There's two sort of main things that happen. One is that this young boy is found who has like supposedly drowned on the day that Inspector Chopra is retiring, and then the other thing is that he inherits an baby elephant. And so Inspector Chopra believes that there's something up with this boy's death, but because he is of a lower class, the police don't really seem very interested in investigating it, and so he sort of uses his free time now to investigate it all on his own. So yeah, I found this to be a good read. It wasn't anything like mind-blowing or amazing, but if you like detective novels, I think that you'll like this one as well. It's really nice how they really reflect what modern India feels like, at least in my opinion. Obviously I don't live there, so I can't say 100% for sure, but they do talk about the way that the police force and everything sort of functions in India and the levels of corruption that occur there and things like that. Yeah, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I recently got the second book in the series from Half Price Books. I think if you watched my December book haul, I show it off. Yeah. So I ended up getting the first book from the library just so I could, you know, get started with the series. So I definitely will be continuing on. I found it to be just like a fun detective story set in India, which I always enjoy. The next book that I read was actually a reread, and that was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I actually ended up listening to this on audiobook. So the temperature here in Chicago has dropped dramatically like the day I'm recording this, the high was like 12 degrees or something along those lines. So I have stopped like reading books on my e-reader for the most part and have mostly converted over to listening to audiobooks while commuting because I don't want to have like my hands out of my pockets basically. Like I have gloves, but even still it's super cold. So anyways, I was looking to see what audiobooks were available on my library or through my library, and Harry Potter was available, the first one, which was very exciting to me because I've never listened to the Harry Potter audiobooks and I haven't reread the series in a really long time, like maybe 7 years, possibly more than that. So yeah, I listened to the audiobook. It was delightful. I kind of want to keep going with the audiobooks as they're available because like I said, I haven't read this series in a really long time and it was a good reminder of just how much more there is in the books themselves, because a lot of what has been retained in my memories through the movies, because obviously like seeing that visually it like helps retain certain details, but there's obviously so much more that happens in the books. So yeah, I kind of want to keep going with the series. I may or may not, we'll see what happens. I probably will. The second one was already available too, so I ended up checking that one out as well. So yeah, I mean, I love Harry Potter. We all love Harry Potter. It's a delightful book. All right, and the final book I ended up finishing up this month was Artemis by Andy Weir. I mentioned this in my October wrap-up or November wrap-up that I was having a really hard time reading this book. Like, something about the writing style just really was not working for me, so I decided that I was going to give the audiobook version a try instead because I knew that Rosario Dawson narrated the audiobook and I really like her. I did not realize that the audiobook was an Audible exclusive though, so I ended up basically re-signing up for Audible. Luckily, they're doing a promotion where if you sign up before the end of the year, the next 3 months are only $5 per month or per credit, and then they obviously do like the first month free. So I basically got Artemis for free. So yes, I restarted my Audible account, I downloaded Artemis, and I ended up listening to it in basically like 2 days. It's a pretty fast moving audiobook. It definitely works a lot better on audio than it does in print. I still didn't love the book, but I definitely was okay with it. I don't know if that's actually helpful for people. So in case you aren't aware, you are following this woman named Jasmine who lives in Artemis, which is basically like a colony on the moon, and she is hired to basically pull off a heist to take down one of the corporations that works there, or to like stop them from being able to produce, I think it's aluminum, because someone else wants to take over producing aluminum for reasons that you will find out when you read the story. So it's basically a heist story on the moon. The reason why I didn't really love it is because it gets really bogged down in the technical details. This is a thing that I heard people say when they were reading The Martian, and it wasn't something that really impacted me. I think because I read that one as like a physical book, and so I basically just like skimmed over all of the technical details and just paid attention to like the plot and dialogue stuff. When you're doing an audiobook, it's much harder to skim. The jokes don't really land for me. They felt a little bit stale in my opinion, but I did end up liking the characters a little bit, so I think that's kind of what kept me going, and also just I like heist stories, so I kind of just wanted to see how it was all going to turn out. The one thing I will say is that it felt like it was too obvious in a certain extent. Like, it felt like the foreshadowing was really heavy-handed, so I saw a lot of things coming. If you're gonna read this book, I would highly recommend doing it on audio because Rosario Dawson is really great. She does things like accents for different characters who should have accents because there are people from a bunch of different countries represented in this story, which was nice. So yeah, I feel like if you're going to give this book a try, do the audiobook. I didn't find it to be like super great. If you love The Martian, you're not necessarily going to love this one as well. It feels a little bit too stale again, and it does feel a bit like our Mark Watney Redux sort of situation, but it wasn't like horrible. And again, if you need an audiobook to listen to, there are worse ones you could listen to. So I don't know if that's really a great endorsement or not. Probably not. But yeah, I got through it. I'll probably give it a 3 out of 5 stars. Alright, so that is everything that I have finished this month. Since I was doing Vlogmas, I didn't do quite as much reading as I usually do, but I'm pretty happy with what I was able to read this month. So I'm currently in the middle of 2 other books. The first one is the 3rd volume in the Eleanor Roosevelt biography. I'm currently about 200 pages into this one, and I'm enjoying it. It's about like 500-ish pages long, and I plan on basically focusing on this one over the New Year's Eve or New Year's weekend. The second book that I am currently reading is The Wall of Storms by Ken Liu. This is the second book in the Dandelion Dynasty series. The first book is The Grace of Kings, which I read 2 years ago now. Maybe it was last year. It was 2016 maybe. Again, this is the second book in the series. I really enjoyed the first book a whole lot. It was probably one of my favorite fantasy books that I read in the year that I read it. So yeah, I picked up the ebook when it was on sale for like $1.99 at some point, and I've been meaning to read it. And if you couldn't tell by the Eleanor Roosevelt biography as well, I've been craving sort of like a bigger book. This one I'm not very far into. I'm maybe like around the 10% mark, but it's another one that I will slowly be working my way through. The main problem is that, again, I'm reading this as an ebook, so usually that would have been my train reading, but again, I'm switching over to audio and I don't want to buy it on audio as well, and my library doesn't have it on audio, so anyways, I don't even know if it's available on audio, to be honest. So anyways, I don't know how long it's going to take me to read this book, but that's fine. I think Grace of Kings took me a good month to get through just because these are big fantasy books. Like, I wish I had a physical copy because they're like chunkers. Like, according to Goodreads, the hardcover version of this one is like over 800 pages long, but I'm completely okay with that. I'm just gonna take my time with it and we'll see how it goes. So yeah, that was my December. Feel free to leave a comment down below letting me know if you have read any of the books that I mentioned here, or if you have any questions about any of the books that I read this month, or any of the videos that I did for Vlogmas, or anything in general. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.